Our mission today is to explore the profound, really foundational trauma that forged one of the 20th century's most compelling figures.
Yeah, and when you think of the forces that shape a revolutionary, you might picture like grand ideological awakenings.
Hmm.
Reading a specific manifesto or a dramatic moment on a podium.
Right, the movie version of history.
Yeah.
But today, we're going to see how a revolutionary mind is actually built through a terrifying childhood cocktail, a mix of racist terror, family fracture, and the psychological warfare of the welfare state.
We're relying entirely on the first chapter, which is fittingly titled Nightmare, of the Autobiography of Malcolm X. Specifically, we're looking at this history through an audiobook excerpt.
Yes, written by Malcolm X with Alex Haley, and listening to this particular version is an experience you really won't easily forget.
It's incredibly powerful.
It is. It's performed by a male African-American voice, Lawrence Fishburne, actually. Hearing that deep, resonant delivery brings this, I don't know, haunting gravity to these early memories.
You really feel the weight of every single word. It moves past just historical documentation into a deeply personal confession.
Exactly. And Fishburne's performance emphasizes that we are listening to a man trace the origin of his own radicalization, basically back to his mother's womb.
Right. It sets the stage for understanding that Malcolm's worldview wasn't merely adopted later in life. It was forged under extreme, inescapable pressure from day one.
So let's set that stage for you all listening, because the literal nightmare begins before Malcolm is even born in 1925. Picture this in your mind. Omaha, Nebraska. It's the dead of night.
A terrifying scene.
A party of Ku Klux Klan riders gallops up and surrounds a house. They're brandishing shotguns and rifles, just shattering every window pane with the butts of their guns.
And standing in the doorway, facing down this mob with their flaring torches, is a pregnant woman.
Right. That is Louise Little, Malcolm's mother. She steps out to show them she is pregnant and alone with her 3 small children.
The Klan is looking for her husband, the Reverend Earl Little. They're shouting threats, warning her that the local white community won't stand for her husband spreading trouble among the black population of Omaha.
And the trouble he's spreading is the philosophy of Marcus Garvey. Earl Little is a dedicated organizer for the Universal Negro Improvement Association, or UNIA.
Which was a huge deal at the time.
Massive. And Earl is this giant, 6-foot-tall, very dark-skinned Baptist minister from Georgia with only one eye.
Yeah, he had already seen 4 of his 6 brothers die by violence, 3 killed by white men, including 1 by lynching.
Which is just horrific to carry. I want to pause here, though. We hear about Marcus Garvey's Back to Africa message, but
Yeah.
how did the UNIA actually operate on the ground to make Earl such a massive target?
Well, the UNIA wasn't just a philosophical club where people sat around discussing ideas. It was a highly structured economic and social movement aimed at complete black independence.
Okay, so it was practical.
Very practical. Garvey built a framework that included businesses, newspapers, and a global vision of black self-reliance. So for a man like Earl Little to organize for the UNIA meant he wasn't just preaching pride.
Who's building something tangible.
Exactly. He was actively organizing a parallel economy and community structure that completely bypassed the white establishment.
Wow. And in 1920s America, establishing economic independence for black people was viewed by white supremacists as a direct existential threat to the social order.
Which makes Earl incredibly dangerous to the status quo. Now, contrast Earl's background with Louise's. She was born in Grenada in the British West Indies.
Right, and she actually looked like a white woman, didn't she?
She did. She had straight black hair, and her accent sounded completely different from the local black community. This appearance was the result of a white father she never knew.
And the source mentions her deep shame about this. Malcolm inherited his reddish-brown skin and hair from this lineage. He explicitly states later in the text how he learned to hate every drop of that white rapist blood in him.
You have the entire spectrum of American racial trauma living inside one single household.
It's like they were carrying the whole history.
Exactly. The father, deeply immersed in black pride but traumatized by literal lynchings. The mother carrying the physical, visible scars of exploitation from her white father.
Trying to navigate a society obsessed with the very skin color she feels ashamed of. Wait, I'm confused about something here, though. The source text reveals that Earl actually favored Malcolm over the other children.
Yeah, he did.
But Earl is a fiercely proud Garveyite preaching black superiority and independence. How does a man like that end up favoring his lightest-skinned child? It seems to contradict everything he stands for in public.
It is a stunning contradiction, but it perfectly illustrates the insidious nature of generational trauma and internalized racism.
Just how deep it goes.
Right. Malcolm explains this as a direct result of slavery-era brainwashing. No matter how militant Earl's conscious politics were, his subconscious had been infected by a society that rewarded proximity to whiteness. He tragically acted on the ingrained instinct to treat his lighter child better because in the brutal calculus of America, lighter meant safer or more valuable.
That is just heartbreaking. He couldn't fully unlearn the conditioning of the system he was dedicating his very life to fighting. And Louise, how did she handle Malcolm's lighter skin?
She went the complete opposite direction. Louise whipped Malcolm more than any of the other children.
Really?
Yeah. She would tell him to go out in the sun to get some color. She was actively, almost aggressively, trying to prevent him from developing any sense of color superiority that the outside world might try to hand him.
So she saw the danger in that unearned privilege and tried to beat it out of him. Imagine for a second. Just imagine being a child caught in that psychological crossfire.
It's a lot for a kid.
Your father favors you for a reason he hates, in theory,
Yeah.
and your mother punishes you for a trait you can't control just to protect you from the world.
Seeking some kind of independence from the constant terror, the family eventually moves to Lansing, Michigan.
But the violence just mutates, doesn't it?
It really does. Instead of the Klan, they face a local hate society called the Black Legion, who wear black robes. They target Earl for being an uppity black man simply because he wants to own his own store and live outside the designated segregated district.
And this external pressure erupts into Malcolm's earliest vivid memory. It's a literal nightmare night in 1929. Two white men set their house on fire.
The family is lunging and tumbling through the smoke.
Right, escaping into the yard in their underwear just before the roof crashes in. And here is the detail that truly demonstrates how systemic oppression functions.
It's infuriating.
The white police and firemen arrive, and they just stand around watching the house burn to the ground. They don't lift a finger to stop the destruction.
And the aftermath is even more revealing about the mechanics of state complacency. Earl had shot at the arsonists with a pistol as they fled.
Which makes sense. He's defending his family.
Exactly. But in the days following the fire, the police continuously harass Earl. They drop by the ruins of the house, shoving things around, looking for that specific pistol because he didn't have a permit for it.
He kept it sewn up inside a pillow, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, his rifles and shotguns were right out in the open, perfectly acceptable for hunting.
If you've ever wondered how the law can be used as a weapon rather than a shield, this is the textbook example. That is selective enforcement in its purest form.
Totally.
The state isn't there to protect the little family from arson. They're there to police Earl's means of self-defense. The system turns a blind eye to the white men committing terror, but strictly scrutinizes the black man trying to protect his family.
And despite this constant, suffocating threat, Earl remains a completely different force inside the living rooms of the Lansing black community.
How so?
Well, Malcolm notes the stark contrast between the local black elite who were, waiters at the country club and shoeshine boys at the state capitol, very static-oriented and complacent, and the people who attended his father's secret Garvey meetings.
Earl is in these living rooms preaching, "Up you mighty race, you can accomplish what you will," passing around shiny photos of Marcus Garvey in a dazzling uniform.
The people in these meetings are intense. They're discussing African redemption and global liberation.
So Malcolm is absorbing two vastly different models of survival. He sees the local community keeping their heads down, accepting the roles the white establishment gives them.
Right.
Then he sees his father, a target of absolute terror from the Black Legion, acting fearlessly, demanding more.
And that brings us to a brilliant, simple anecdote Malcolm shares about his older brother, Wilfred.
Oh, the biscuit story.
Yes. Think about how you were taught to behave as a child. Most of us are told to be quiet, wait our turn, don't make a fuss.
Exactly.
Wilfred was the nice boy, quiet and well-behaved. Sometimes the kids would ask for a buttered biscuit, and Louise, stressed and impatient, would say no. Wilfred would accept it and stay hungry.
But Malcolm took a different approach entirely. He would cry out and make a massive fuss, relentlessly demanding the biscuit until his mother finally gave in just to quiet him down.
He extracts a fundamental rule from this early memory. He realizes if you want something, you'd better make some noise.
He's observing the mechanics of demanding power. Being polite and accepting denial gets you nothing. Making noise gets you fed.
Yeah, he's learning how to make noise to survive.
But even that resilience isn't enough to protect the family from what happens next. The fragile stability they built in Lansing is shattered over something as small as a rabbit.
It escalated so quickly.
Earl wants Louise to cook a rabbit. They have a fierce argument. Earl twists the rabbit's head off with his bare hands, throws it at her feet, and storms out of the house.
And Louise, who Malcolm notes had a strong intuition, immediately has a terrifying vision of his death.
She runs out onto the porch screaming his name. Earl! Earl!
But he keeps walking into the night.
He never comes back.
Yeah.
The police arrive later to deliver the news. Earl's skull is crushed in on one side. He was laid across the streetcar tracks to be run over, and his body was almost cut in half.
He lived for 2.5 hours in that condition.
Just brutal. And the community whispered that the Black Legion had finally gotten him.
Malcolm is only 6 years old at the time. He remembers going to the funeral, which is held in a funeral parlor rather than a church.
That surprised him, right?
Yeah, it did. He notes that his father's strong black face looked like it had been dusted with flour. It's a haunting image of a powerful man diminished in death.
And the tragedy of the murder is immediately compounded by a profound institutional betrayal. Earl did everything society tells a responsible man to do. He bought 2 life insurance policies to protect his family.
Right, but the larger one refuses to pay.
Exactly. The smaller one pays out, but the larger one refuses. The insurance company claims this brutal, agonizing death, a man with a crushed skull placed on streetcar tracks, was a suicide.
Let's look at the function of that denial. The insurance company leverages an absurd, physically impossible narrative just to avoid their contractual obligation.
They leave a 34-year-old widow to provide for 8 children in the middle of the Great Depression. It's like the system has a built-in trapdoor.
That's a great way to put it.
It's like buying a fire extinguisher. But when your house catches fire, the manufacturer points to a loophole in the manual saying the warranty is void if the fire was too hot.
Yeah, the system is designed to collect premiums, not provide safety nets to those they deem unworthy.
How do institutions get away with exploiting marginalized people so blatantly?
They rely entirely on the power imbalance. The insurance company knows Louise Little is a black widow with 8 children and no income.
She has 0 political capital.
And absolutely no resources to hire a lawyer to challenge them in court. The institution doesn't need the narrative of suicide to be scientifically or medically plausible. They only need it to be legally unchallenged.
They rewrite reality because they hold the pen.
Exactly.
And that stolen safety net triggers a harrowing physical and psychological descent for the Little family. They're quite literally starving. Louise takes on menial jobs, doing housework and sewing for white families.
Because of her light skin, employers often didn't realize she was black at first. But the moment they found out she was the widow of the radical Earl Little,
Fired on the spot.
fired on the spot.
The starvation sets in deeply. Malcolm describes eating the holes out of donuts. They boiled dandelion greens, which gets them teased at school for eating fried grass.
They survive on meals of mush. Malcolm starts drifting around town, stealing apples from displays and cooning watermelons from farms in the summer.
And into this absolute desperation steps the state welfare system.
Now, we usually hear about welfare, especially during the Great Depression, as a vital lifeline, a government safety net catching those who fall.
Sure, that's the standard narrative.
But Malcolm paints a completely different picture. He views the monthly welfare check as a master and the welfare workers as a weapon. Why did he feel that the psychological damage caused by these workers was so much faster and more destructive than the actual physical hunger?
The welfare workers functioned as behavioral enforcers rather than caregivers. They brought food, but every item was stamped with the words, "not to be sold."
Malcolm cynically jokes it's a wonder they didn't think of not to be sold as a brand name. The core issue is that the state stripped away the one vital resource Louise had left, which was her pride. The social workers acted as if they owned the family.
They treated them like inventory.
They treated them as private property. They would insist on drawing the older children aside, interrogating them, planting seeds of division.
They were actively trying to get the children to speak against their mother and each other.
Effectively dismantling the family unit from the inside under the guise of case management.
The climax of this psychological warfare is incredibly telling. A neighbor offers the starving family some butchered pork. Louise refuses it.
Because of her new religion, right?
Yes, she had recently begun practicing the Seventh-day Adventist religion, and their dietary laws strictly forbid eating pork. She is adhering to her religious principles, trying to maintain some semblance of spiritual control over her life.
And the welfare workers weaponize this against her. They call her crazy right to her face in front of her children for refusing good meat.
They pathologize her religious conviction.
Instead of recognizing a woman fiercely holding on to her dignity, they penalize her for not being a compliant, grateful subject of the state. Malcolm aptly compares them to vultures circling a dying animal.
This realization that the game is rigged doesn't just make Malcolm cynical, it turns him into a tactician. While the family is disintegrating inside the home under the watchful eye of the state, Malcolm is getting a very different kind of education out on the streets.
He shares a story about picking strawberries all day for $1, which was a massive amount of money for a starving kid.
Huge.
Walking into town to buy food, an older white boy named Richard Dixon asks if he wants to match nickels. In half an hour, Richard wins the entire dollar. Malcolm goes home with nothing.
But Malcolm discovers later exactly how Richard won. He was cheating. There's a specific way to catch and hold the nickel so it comes up the way you want.
Malcolm extracts a profound sociological metaphor from this. He realizes if you see somebody winning all the time, he isn't gambling, he's cheating.
He applies this directly to the Black experience in America.
Yes. He describes the white man as a professional gambler who has all the cards, the odds stacked on his side, and who is always dealing from the bottom of the deck.
It perfectly mirrors the insurance company calling his father's murder a suicide. The rules don't matter if the dealer is corrupt.
Exactly.
You see this tactical mindset solidify when he takes that perspective into the woods to hunt rabbits. He goes out with these old men who have a set strategy.
The circle strategy.
Right. When a dog jumps a rabbit, the rabbit will always run in a wide circle and return to the exact spot it started. So the old men just sit at the starting point and wait.
It's a strategy based entirely on predictability and patience.
But 12-year-old Malcolm analyzes the system and finds the inefficiency. He separates from the old men, figures out the path the rabbit has to take to return to the starting point, and waits further up the trail.
He intercepts the rabbit before it ever gets back to the group. He starts getting 3 or 4 rabbits for every one they get.
He learns that anytime you find someone more successful than you in the same environment, they're doing something you aren't. He's constantly observing how power dynamics operate and how they can be subverted.
We see this again in a Halloween outhouse prank.
Oh, that story is wild.
The kids arrange an outhouse over a trap so that the 2 white boys in the lead fall neck deep into the hole. Malcolm notes the irony. The white kids were so used to taking the lead in society, and this time it literally got them in the hole.
But despite his growing street smarts and tactical mind, a 12-year-old boy cannot outmaneuver the legal power of the state.
No, he can't.
Louise finally suffers a complete nervous breakdown. She begins talking to herself, unaware the kids are even there. The text describes a heartbreaking progression where the house becomes less tidy, the kids more unkempt, and the anchor finally gives way.
The state strikes its final blow. A white judge, Judge McClellan, finds the court orders making all the children state wards.
Malcolm describes this not as child protection, but as legal modern slavery. A white man given full, unquestioned authority to dissolve a black family.
Louise is taken to the state mental hospital at Kalamazoo, where she remains for 26 years. The children are scattered to different foster homes.
The UNIA organizer's family is completely erased from the map, which brings us to what I think is the most devastating moment in the entire chapter, the 1952 visit.
It's hard to even read.
Malcolm is 27 years old. He goes to visit his mother in the hospital. She doesn't recognize him at all. She just stares at him. He tries to reach her, ask her if she knows what day it is, and she just says, "All the people have gone."
Malcolm writes, "It was as if I was trying to walk up the side of a hill of feathers. The woman who brought him into the world, who stood down the Klan in the dead of night, who fought the psychological warfare of the welfare workers, didn't know her own son's name."
Malcolm's conclusion from this is chillingly clear. He states without hesitation that if ever a state social agency destroyed a family, it destroyed theirs.
The welfare system, the courts, the doctors, they gave the family a 1-2-3 punch.
And just to be clear for you listening, we're simply reporting what's in the text here, not taking any political sides, but it's crucial to understand his perspective. The true villain of this chapter, ultimately, isn't just the Klan or the Black Legion.
The overt violence of the white supremacists murdered his father, but the quiet, bureaucratic, legal violence of the state dismantled his mother's mind and permanently shattered his family.
Malcolm states he purposefully avoids talking about his mother with people because he is capable of killing a person without hesitation who makes the wrong remark about her.
He developed zero mercy for a society that crushes people and then penalizes them for not being able to withstand the weight.
As we wrap up this deep dive, let's look at what we've uncovered. This nightmare wasn't just a bad dream. It was the anvil on which Malcolm X's worldview was hammered out.
He learned that systemic oppression doesn't just rely on burning houses and physical terror.
No, it operates through ledgers, through denied insurance claims, through not-to-be-sold stamps, and through court orders signed by indifferent judges.
He witnessed a society that demanded reliance on a rigged game, where the rules were constantly rewritten to ensure the house always won.
Which leaves you with something really important to think about today. If a system designed entirely around the concepts of relief and welfare was actually experienced by this vulnerable family as a mechanism of destruction.
As legal modern slavery.
Exactly. We have to ask ourselves a difficult question. Think about the institutions we interact with today. How many of our modern bureaucracies operating under the guise of helping or managing society are actually just dividing, policing, and dismantling vulnerable communities right now?
It's a heavy thought.
It is. Are we still trying to heal broken bones by pretending the X-ray machine works perfectly when the entire diagnostic landscape is rigged?